Hey y'all, how we doing? Shout out once again to Bear Nation for tuning in to another episode of the Bear Necessities podcast. I am your host, Rob Napoli. The Bear Necessities is a podcast where we sit down with entrepreneurs, ecosystem partners, and innovation folks to talk about what it takes and means to launch, create, and scale business across the world. We talk about the journey and the challenges of being entrepreneurial minded and how that translates into your journey, giving you the tools and knowledge to overcome challenges that you may be facing in your life's journey. The Bear Necessities is part of the Rise Up Media family, and we thank you for tuning in. Now, let's get into the show. Hey y'all, how we doing? Back again for the first episode of the Bear Necessities podcast of 2022. And I wanted to just kind of jump on and do a solo episode to talk a little about lessons learned in 2021, kind of do a old school Rob Knapp recap if any of y'all have been following me on LinkedIn back early days, and talk about some of the things that are on the horizon for 2022 and what we're going to be doing more of with this show, The Bear Necessities, and some of the other things that we have going on at Rise Up. So I'm excited to just sit and chop it up with you a little bit. 2021 was a big year for me in a way that I own two businesses, a co-founder of a company called Hapday Group. We're a U.S. go-to-market sales as a service business, and we help companies land and expand in the U.S. through outsource sales development rep services, and have done a lot of great work with that. At the end of 2020, we were able to bring on an amazing team out of Mexico to help operationally scale the business. And so 2021 was really focusing on the other business that I own called Rise Up Coaching. And that's more of the training and development side of things, more of the speaking and things like that. So I had one more operational business and one more training and development. And I'm excited because I'll be bringing on my business partner and one of my best friends, Phil DeVecchio, for an episode here this year to talk about our experience scaling that business, things that we went through during the pandemic, having teams, and just some of the struggles we've had of going through our, kind of first entrepreneurial journey, and how that also set me up a little bit for success with what we've done with Rise Up so far. And I'm also excited because we're bringing on the team out of Mexico that we've been working with to talk a little bit about their business and how we got teamed up and some of the lessons that we've learned through cross-border acceleration and cross-border business and how we can service markets and some of the things that we've done and are currently doing. So I'm excited for those episodes later this year. But what I wanted to do in 2021 was say yes to everything. I wanted to take on a lot of things, test out a lot of things, and continue to find and develop what I'm passionate about, what I love to do. And many of us are out there, I know, because people ask me this all the time. They're like, Rob, you got it all together. And I don't. I have a pretty good idea of what I want to do. I'm driving to those passions, but I'm still learning. I'm still evolving. I'm still growing. And so 2021 was a year of saying yes to everything so that I can learn. And I learned that there were some activities that I didn't love to do as much as others. And so, as I continue to grow and scale Rise Up Coaching and what we do with the business and the content we create and the assets that we create will continue to develop based on those lessons and things that we have learned here as we grow the organization. Through that, saying yes to everything, I was able to do something that I've wanted to do for years, and that's start a podcast. And the Bear Necessities was born. And I wanted to do something. I love entrepreneurship. I love talking about what it means to be an entrepreneur. I love talking about how and why people start businesses, more so than the actual business itself. I really wanted to give a space and a place for early stage founders, right, from pre-seed to Series A, to talk more about the journey and who they are and how they got to where they are and how they got to wanting to build a company and the plans they have and the problems they've overcome, so that as listeners, whether we're entrepreneurs ourselves or just entrepreneurial minded, and many listeners may never want to be an entrepreneur themselves, but there's lessons they can learn from entrepreneurs they can take into their daily lives and allow them to grow and scale and build, right? We had Greg Larkin talking about intrapreneurship and how you kind of bring that entrepreneurial mindset into a more corporate environment, and how do you innovate and make big things happen within organizations. So that's what I wanted this show to be about. And so we were able to do like 36, 37 amazing episodes. And the end of the year closed out with my twin brother and I. It was very special to have Ryan on Christmas Day, the last day that we were all in Kansas City on my aunt and uncle's farm. My aunt and uncle have decided to sell the farm and move into more of a retirement golf course community. They're going to be living on like the 16th hole. And they both love to golf, so I could just step on out. So, if I'm ever down in Kansas City for a weekend, I'll probably be on the golf course. But it was very kind of an emotional time. They've lived there, I think, 22-something years. And that's, my twin and my two younger brothers, we kind of call that home, in a sense of we grew up on that farm. We learned a lot of lessons on that farm. A lot of long weekends of chopping wood, carrying water type stuff. And so it was a very cool experience to have my twin brother on and talk about something that a lot of us go through, especially at the end of the year. And that's a bit of our imposter syndrome. And how do we overcome that? And how, especially from his role as the director of sport performance, working with athletes who go to school 4 or 5, even 6 years, if you're redshirted and stuff like that, to play a sport. And the fact that there's not many spots open in the big leagues. And so what does life look like after college? Because a lot of us, even now, after college in our lives today, we let our work define us. And for some of us, that's okay. Some of us, our brand is our job, right? It's all one together. And some of us, it's different. Some of us have work and we use work to feed other passions and other projects. And it's really important as we look at the end of the year and into next year to not define ourselves by one thing or what other people are or what our past was. And every year we need to look at, how do we continue to grow, take one step further? How do we continue to evolve, right? One of our core values at Rise Up is always to be curious, because when you're curious, you learn. I think for a lot of us, as we look at 2022, we've come off a long last couple of years. A lot of things have happened in our world that have shaken us to our core and changed the way we foundationally and fundamentally do business and look at business and everything. How do we be curious and learn? How do we evolve and overcome and adapt? And how do we make magic happen? And that led me to another big project, right? Because I'm learning all these lessons from the podcast. And it's been an amazing experience to listen to all these founder stories and journeys. And some like, I never thought about entrepreneurship, to I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur from the day I was born type. And I was writing a book. And The Social Soul, which comes out January 18th. You can go pre-order it now on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. But if you've already bought it, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. They will be shipped out January 18th. I know there were some issues with Amazon saying out of stock and some different things, but that is because it's a pre-sale. Everything will be released January 18th. I apologize. If Amazon hasn't taken care of things or made things right, please let me know and I will help you get that ordered. If you haven't, take a look. I'll have a link in the show notes. My book, The Social Soul, I'm really excited about it. I started on this journey around social selling back in 2018, and I didn't like the term social selling because that just kind of made me feel too much like connect and pitch. Right. I really wanted us to think about, as we go through things like imposter syndrome, as we go through things of what do I do now and what do I do next, we need to kind of go back to who we are, right? And, there's a theory called the Golden Circle by Simon Sinek. And from a business standpoint, that makes sense, start with why. But I think that you still got to start. You can't start with why until you know where you are. So you got to start with where you are. And understand what got you to where you are today. What are those lessons? What are those things you're passionate about? What are those things that you want? That is where the why is driven from, especially from a personal perspective, right? A little different from a business perspective. From a personal perspective, you got to start with where you are, understanding what got you to where you are today, to really understand why and figure out passions. And that was what the book was about. Mastering your personal and professional brand with intentionality and authenticity. Many of us are afraid of posting online because of the keyboard warriors and all of those things. The idea behind this book is to talk about how to be a content engager, how to overcome that fear, because that is where the world is going, right? We have the metaverse, NFTs, we have Neuralink on the horizon. Technology is going to continue to change the way we grow, and we're all along for the ride. And so if you really want to make the most of your network, if you really want to drive the most out of your life, you need to know how to master that and understand that you both personal and professional are there. So I'm really excited about the book. So 2021 was awesome. We wrote a book, launched a podcast, scaled up this side of the business, drove tons of growth to Haptic Group. In fact, we doubled our revenue. We've doubled our revenue year over year for the last 3 years, which is absolutely amazing. So a lot of good things have happened, but it didn't come without the challenges. There were really tough months where we lost clients. There were things when we made mistakes, where we ran into our own issues, myself included, running into my own issues with burnout and with my own imposter syndrome and what am I doing? In fact, what many of you don't know is I actually started this book writing process in 2018, put it on hold because of the pandemic, picked up a new publisher, and had about half the book written as it was about July. And I remember coming home and didn't like it. I kept all the prompts, all the questions that I was kind of answering as we wrote the book. And I did Control-Alt-Delete, deleted the whole book. And I free flow wrote answering those questions, and I finished it in about 3 weeks after that. I knew what I wanted to say, and I knew that I needed to stop trying to write a book and just be Rob and share it. So the book is perfectly imperfect. I sent out 40 first read copies, only to realize there's 2 misspellings in the first chapter, and the page numbers were a little bit off. And I was like, man, should I not do this? Should I do it? I was like, you know what? It's perfectly imperfect because I wanted the feedback. The feedback I got was amazing. Some great feedback that we've incorporated into the final draft. Some great feedback on where to go next. Some things that people wish we went deeper with the book. And it's only 99 pages. I did that for a reason. I want it to be short and tons of value, keep your attention span, and really drive it home. And then allow for the organic growth to happen. So I'm excited for y'all. Take a look. Check out my new book, The Social Soul. So that was 2021. It's a great year. And now we're in 2022. And we're thinking about what does 2022 look like? And I've already seen a ton of posts. And I've talked about this before, about motivation and New Year's resolutions and all of these things. And I don't think you have to wait for a New Year to start a resolution. Granted, we understand why. It's kind of like the turning of a page and starting of a chapter. But there's 2 types of motivation, internal versus external. Where we mostly fail is that we don't have our own internal motivation. We are always looking for outside motivation to drive us. Outside motivation should spark your internal fire, but your internal fire is the only thing that's going to carry you through. It's easy to make excuses. It's easy for something not to go right because, oh, I forgot this, or the weather, or that, or this, right? And that's why we need to drive internally and overcome. Hey, I know the little person in the back of your brain saying sleep sounds better, but you got to get up. Or I know that it's easier to just do it tomorrow. Do it now. So I hope that you all, as you look at 2022 and you're building out your goals and your plans, that you start looking at, what is my mission? What am I driven to do? What are the things I want to accomplish? And start planting those flags. I always talk about planting flags in the sand because you get there, and once you hit that, you pick it up and you move it to the next marker. And you work methodically to it because sometimes you're going to fall. You're going to take a step back. Start planting those flags. Understand what that internal fire and motivation is and find how to build that and take that to the next level. Because only you are going to do that to get there. And that's something that I had to internalize myself as we look at 2022. I'm excited because the book comes out in a week. I've got some other big announcements coming in February with some of the things that we're doing that I'm really excited about. It's been an amazing journey and some stories that I want to share. I have some great guests coming up on this podcast that are going to have some really great stories. In fact, what we want to do with the pod in 2022 is share more amazing founder stories, but also bring in more ecosystem support people and providers like accelerators and incubators and things like that, chamber of commerces and government agencies that help as a entrepreneur founder's right hand. And then innovation consultants. I want to go and bring in some high-level innovation consultants at companies like IBM, et cetera, to talk about what they do in this world and where does the space go from here. And the idea is that for all my listeners, whether you're going to be an entrepreneur or not, that hopefully there's some great nuggets of wisdom, things that you can learn that you can implement into the challenges you face in your daily life, and that you can learn something and take that to the next level. And we can learn and grow together. So I'm excited. There's also going to be some new content coming out. I purposely took a month off. I posted a lot of content last year, TikToks and Reels and posts on LinkedIn, and I needed to take a break. I needed to take a step back in December, kind of let some things breathe and let myself rest. I was back home for 2 weeks, so it's just too much to take on. So I just, I'm going to kind of tone it down, and we're going to pick back up. I've got some great new content, exciting topics to share with you. And keep looking at that website. There's going to be some new content and things dropping and offers dropping on the website as the year goes along. I don't know everything that's going to happen this year and don't know if some of the things we're going to do are going to be successful or not, but I'm excited to try. I'm excited to make it happen, and I'm excited to share that journey along the way and learn from other great entrepreneurs through this podcast, just like y'all listening are. So hope you all have a wonderful 2022. I want to give a shout out to a few of the podcasts that I was able to guest on in the last 6 months. And for anyone out there looking for some great resources or looking for some new podcasts, there's a lot of people, hey, I want some new podcasts for the new year. So I figured I'd put together a list of some amazing podcasts where I know the host, I know the quality of the content that you can learn something from. Today is The Future by host Livy Redden. Success Fundamentals by my guys Chris Sykes and Brian Goldstack. They are great wisdom there. Walker McKay and his show No BS Sales School. The Other Side of Sales with Ashley Early and her amazing slew of diverse co-hosts. It's an amazing show and what she's doing and the topics that she's covering. Tough conversations around diversity in sales is amazing. Revenue Reel Hotline with Amy Hovershek. I probably said her name wrong, and I'm sorry, Amy. But she has really tough conversations with people in the sales field, and it's amazing. The content is amazing. When you listen, yeah, it's tough. I was on that show. It's tough. Some of those questions were tough, but that's where real learning happens. And that's what I love about these podcasts. And that's why I wanted to start my own is I don't want the one shining moment. I want the real shit that happens. A couple other ones, Square Stories with my man, Brian Burkhart. Genius Leadership, a good friend of mine, Anna Leibel. She's amazing. In fact, I've started working with her as my business coach. She's just been an amazing resource for me. And her episode is actually going to be dropping on Thursday. So the next episode after this one, Lead Sell Grow with Eric Konovalvo and Harry Spade. I probably said Eric's name wrong. Apologize, my guy. Sales Hustle, which is now Sales Transformation with my man Colin Mitchell and the team over at Salescast. I'm a part of that Salescast community. They have just, Colin is a great host, and he also helps teach people how to run podcasts, so his content is always amazing. My guy Timmy Bauer, purpose-driven entrepreneur. I loved getting to do his podcast. In fact, I'm going to be collaborating with him next year on a small, fun project. So stay tuned towards the end of probably Q1, Q2 for a fun little project that I'm working on. And then when I was in DC, I had a chance to sit down with Ronell Richards and be on his business and bourbon podcast. And if you want to know and meet somebody who puts his money where his mouth is when it talks about building community and getting at the heart of entrepreneurship, you need to connect with Ronell and you need to check out his podcast. You need to get involved with the business and bourbon community at some of the best events around. So that's kind of my list of some top podcasts. I'll make sure to have them dropped in the show notes for y'all. Have a wonderful 2022. If there's anything I can do for you, hit me up. Let me know. Thank you all for the support. I can't wait till you get to hear some amazing guests and amazing stories and amazing episodes coming up this year. Until next time, stay well, Bear Nation. Bear Nation, once again, thank you for tuning in and listening to the Bear Necessities podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review. It really does help and means a lot to us, the show. And I want to thank our friends over at Fin. Fin is a social good platform that creates employee engagement and builds culture. It's our mission to support and give back to the communities that we serve around the world. And we do this by giving every guest on our show a $10 donation to the cause of their choosing using the Fin platform. Until next time, thank y'all, stay well, and rise up.